goes live in 2 minutes. Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hello. I got afterglow from Friday. I still haven't been able to be very coherent about it. It's so unbelievable. What a week! Hi, it's Monday now. And Jared Day, of all people, is with us today, which is perfect because,
yeah.
I mean, you're a historian,
Mm-hmm.
and people kept saying, we're watching history be made.
Yes.
We know this is history being made.
And it was like a week of it.
A week of it every time. I mean, just when you're sort of getting your balance from one, another comes down the pike.
On Thursday, when they did the Obamacare decision, I was thinking, oh, man, they're going to be talking about this for weeks. And it's like, no. They talked about it for less than 24 hours, and then got completely pushed off the landscape.
Yeah.
So it's like, yep. But there was so much that happened. And... You know, I think back, and you and I have talked before about some both critics who you would kind of expect of it, but yeah, even some people who are
trashing Obama,
like
me sometimes.
The columnist for the New York Times.
Oh, come on! Oh, she's a jerk. I mean, all she does. What, Maureen Dowd?
Yeah.
She's an embarrassment.
I think that's what this last week demonstrated. It kind of separated out, the critics and the pundits who you've got to look back and say, these people need to go and take a sabbatical.
Get some context. I mean, she's disgusting. I cannot stomach her. She's an embarrassment to me.
Yes.
May I just read very quickly what the other female at the Times said?
Gail
Cullen.
Yes, tell us.
I'm just going to read a few paragraphs because she was beside herself, too. Hooray. But then here she goes. Ever since Theodore Roosevelt, our decision makers have pushed for a national health insurance program. Stuff always happened. Listen to this. You'll remember this. Back in the 1970s, Representative Wilbur Mills, the super powerful chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, thought he had President Gerald Ford convinced on national health. But Mills failed to get the bill out of committee, due, he said much later, to the fact that he was, drinking a half gallon of vodka a day and had hallucinations about buzzards chasing him.
Yes.
Wilbur Mills famously is the one who ended up in the reflecting pool with Fannie Fox,
Yes.
the hooker.
Yes.
Okay.
Fannie Fox.
Okay,
yes.
so anyone who watched the disaster that healthcare created for the Clintons might have had reason to dodge the subject for another century. But Obama pushed the bill through, even when a great many members of his party were begging him to drop the whole thing and do something easier about jobs or taxes that would get more traction in the next election. And give some credit to Nancy Pelosi. When things looked bleakest, after Ted Kennedy had died and Republicans won his seat, Democrats started to backtrack, but Pelosi stood firm. Here's her quote. "We'll go through the gate. If the gate's closed, we'll go over the fence. If the fence is too high, we'll pole vault in. If that doesn't work, we'll parachute in. But we're going to get health care reform passed for the American people." And darned if they didn't, says
Indeed.
Collins.
Oh,
no, but I mean, come on. People have been trying. Presidents have been trying.
And one of the pieces that very few commentators have noted about that is that whether you're talking about FDR in the 30s or LBJ in the 60s or even the Democrats in the 70s with Nixon, that you're looking at where the Democrats had either super majorities
right.
or big majorities.
Exactly.
It was one of the things that always that has bugged me about the people who compare the political styles of Obama and LBJ. It's like, well, LBJ's fortunes came down to earth after the 1966 off-year elections because he lost his supermajority. And so it's like, well, not much happened domestically in his last 2 years. Whereas Obama, he barely had a majority. And to do, this thing where that had taken,
over
100 years to accomplish, it's like, people need to adjust themselves to the extraordinariness of that.
Some things that are sticking out in my head. A friend sent me a musical group, some guys, who put a lot of Scalia's dissents, both in the Affordable Care Act dissent and the gay marriage dissent, put them to music.
Okay.
And it is it's wondrous and mind-blowing. But I want to ask you about him.
Which one?
Scalia.
Yeah.
I think he's like losing it.
Yeah.
Do you think he might be? I mean, what he did the lack of respect for his colleague. I mean, these are guys. There's 9 of them, 9 people,
sure,
and they've got to. And there's a certain, obviously, supposed to be a collegiality. But even if they don't get along, there's a decorum that is.
Yeah, there are times in the past when it's gotten bad.
So unbelievable.
Yeah.
And he read that with Kennedy. I can't even imagine. I think Scalia is losing his mind.
I have a slightly different take on it in that I believe that Scalia and Thomas. Now, Thomas doesn't talk very much, so you don't get nearly the full Clarence Thomas when you see or hear about him, but that both of them they are Fox News devotees, and so what's shaping so much of their attitudes, and you see this especially when Scalia is out talking in public, like when he does the sort of meet and greet or kind of hear the justice kind of things, and it's just like he
He drank the Kool-Aid.
Very, very much so.
But I thought he was supposed to be. I mean, everybody says he was a brilliant jurist. So how do you?
He's brilliant in the both as somebody who can argue a point from a legal point of view. But I would say that he's devolved into almost a partisan caricature on the Supreme Court.
Yeah, and you would think he'd care about his legacy. I mean, he's just, oh my God. I mean, it's unbelievable. He's lost sight. He's lost perspective.
Yes.
He's lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Once was lost, but now I'm found.
Not him.
No. Okay, we got to talk about that.
Yeah.
That speech.
Yeah.
Obama.
Yeah.
It's like and people have said this, and it's so true. He doesn't have to run for re-election. He doesn't have to run again in his life. And as he told Mark Maron, the comedian whose show he was on, that he's not. I think he's not afraid anymore.
Right now, he's free.
He's free, and he was free to be who he is. Mm-hmm. And he showed us the Obama that we fell in love with when we first saw him at the Democratic convention.
It's one of the things I've found so aggravating about him through most of his presidency is, I think I've told you before and I said here before that I view Obama as one of the greatest orators in U.S. history. And yet, as president, and especially after, his first 2 years in office, he has not chosen to use that power.
Why do you think?
I have no idea.
Well,
and it's
because
just
I think he felt so constrained about not being the black president, not being the angry black man, aware of how the metrics of every step he took, every word he said. And then look at the uptick since his election in sort of racial insanity.
Yes.
Right? So, I mean, I don't know.
I have a possible theory, and that I think that, and this is just a possibility, that he views his oratorical skills with a certain degree of contempt. There's a manipulation, and that he can do it so easily, and that he didn't want, for whatever reason, to have that, that he wanted to govern a different kind of a way, that he didn't, and it's like I don't. That's just.
But that was one of the best arrows he has in his quiver.
I know.
Why you
wouldn't? But he clearly, after his first year in office, he stopped giving great speeches.
No, I know.
He stopped.
I can think, where's this guy I voted for?
Now, I also know John Favreau, his speechwriter, left after his first term. But even there, his last, he is somebody I definitely want to interview someday or talk to. It's like, what happened, man? It's like, and we'll see. Yeah, but I wouldn't be surprised if that issue comes up in his memoirs.
Okay. Why he
did he
stowed the oratorical skill?
I think it may have dated back to when he was in the campaign mode. That people mocked him at times. Hillary mocked him at times for his speechifying, and I remember there was a time where she said something to the effect, stop speechifying, and present.
Is it okay? So it was like, it's not serious what you're doing. You're just showing off.
And somehow Obama may have gotten enrolled in or kind of persuaded by that argument. I wonder about it because, boy, as I say, I view him as one of the best ever to occupy the White House. And, and we live in a time where oratory, good luck in seeing it in the public square.
Tell me.
It's like, you see it in the pulpit, but, I was reading an article earlier today about, it was James Fallows. I
love him.
For the Atlantic. He was dissecting Obama's speech. And he was saying...
The Reverend President is one of the old... one of the old ministers said, "Thank you, Reverend President."
Oh, that's great. I love that. But what Fallows was saying is like, it's interesting when you look at the Republicans, it's like, when are they going to get somebody... they had Ronald Reagan, who was a decent speaker, but it's like, since then... It's like it's been a desert, and it's like
Well, you can't be a great speaker if all you're doing is dog whistles.
That's absolutely true, and sound biting.
Yeah.
And I also think that what is missing on the Republican side is they cannot seem to put aside their rage.
No, that's their. What do you mean? That's their core.
I know, and it's like
rage and fear.
Yeah, you Obama. I don't know that there's ever. It's rare that you ever hear any anger in his public speaking, but in his best public speaking, it's like it's all about the future, about positive, about uplift, and
they don't hear that. They don't even understand what. Yeah, I guess
they're going to need to find it if they want to get back into the White House.
I want to talk about what next in terms of gay rights.
Yeah.
Evan Wolfson, a Pittsburgher.
Yes, indeed.
Evan Wolfson is generally considered to be the person who first put into the public consciousness the not only idea but the argument that gay people should be allowed to marry.
Yes. Was that 83?
I think he wrote a PhD.
It was some kind of a thesis.
A thesis he wrote in 80 something. Yes, I can't remember exactly.
I'm pretty sure it was 83.
And he says, okay, so now what? Most activists, who are doing things, they always say, and I would love to put myself out of a job. Well, he folded up. The fact is he had his organization, which was called the Freedom to Marry, right?
Yes.
Freedom to Marry Foundation. Freedom to Marry.
What's next?
Doesn't have to do that now. So here's the other thing. It's interesting. The minute gays get this, that they've been, you start hearing tones of not only what do we do now, but some slight regret. I love this quote. I love this quote.
What is it?
This is from an author. She wrote the book for a Broadway musical right now called Fun Home. But she says this: "The thing I miss is the specialness of being gay. Because because traditional paths were closed to us, there was a consciousness to our lives, a necessary invention to the way we were going to celebrate and mark family and mark connection. That was magical and beautiful." And so here you isn't that interesting? Now you're just like everybody else. And it's like, oh no.
Well, it's the same thing you saw with African Americans when segregation gets busted down.
It turns out there's a negative side.
Suddenly you can go and live in the suburbs, and suddenly you can send your kids to the better schools, and suddenly you don't have any reason to have your business be in the African American neighborhood.
And in fact, it just destroyed African American businesses and all of that. So
it's like that is still progress.
And here Andrew Sullivan says, he's tracking the end of gay culture.
Ooh.
which he says erodes a little more each year. It has been eroding.
Yes.
And he said lately he has noticed that the old gay bars have become popular sites for heterosexual bachelorette parties, the women showing up in sashes and white veils. When they do, friends tease him about the consequences of the gay marriage fight he helped ignite. See what you asked for?
No.
Interesting.
It is.
Interesting.
I love Sullivan.
I love Sullivan, too. So anyway, Evan Wilson says there's still a lot of work to be done. And in fact, I mentioned that Friday when we found out it had come down, because the reality is that, okay, fine and dandy, gays can marry in all these states. But in the majority of the states of this union, there is still no protection for gays in employment.
Yes.
In housing.
Yes.
So
public facilities.
So how does that not fall in the same way now that in the same way in terms of equal protection?
Well, you've already heard the counter argument that conservatives are developing around religious freedom.
Oh dear, this is wow, yeah.
And to me, at least at this phase, it seems like a fairly thin reed to be hanging their thinking on. But you see, it's already that the religious freedom argument has already made some ground among some judicial circles.
Yes, it has.
So it's like that's what they're going to go with. And I suspect
how would that have worked in after the Loving case in the when the Supreme Court said you can marry interracially? A lot of people would say, well, that is absolutely against my whatever.
Yes.
I mean, or civil rights. They used to hide behind the Bible in that.
That's
discrimination against African Americans. So how does that hold? It doesn't hold, does it?
Well, it holds in certain environments. So for churches, that they can discriminate as much as they want.
Right.
And now it gets a little hairier
but they
when you
can't
talk
get...
about when there's churches that provide social services, or they're hiring people for at Salvation Army, or those types of things that. If they are continuing.
Well, now wait a minute. If there's there are parochial schools where the children get to those schools using buses that are paid for by tax dollars.
That's where the fuzziness. That's where the court is going to have to make some determinations, or they're going to have to pass some legislation that clearly delineates in a rational way where there's a dividing line. I mean, the problem up until now, and it's one of the things that propelled this, whatever the case. The case.
This case?
Yeah, the one.
Well,
that
because he has a strange name.
I can't remember. It starts with an E. That propelled that case is that you couldn't. How could you find a rational basis for determining separating gays out from straight people? And it turns out that almost all of the previous courts couldn't do it, and that's why the Obama Justice Department, I don't know that they were going to defend that, take a defense against this anyway, but it's just nobody wanted to take it. No lawyer wanted to have their name attached to the kind of bogus arguments that would have had to have been made to say that, oh yes, this is rational.
Well, we're in for my fear, and I've stated this. Is that with the conservatives in this country taking it on the chin.
Yes.
Left and right.
Oh, man.
Or right.
Yep, they got some missing teeth right now.
Yeah, but for that piece of them that has been crazed already the ones, the Obama haters, the crazy people. I mean, the people that are, I don't know. There's so many of them. There's millions of them.
The Dylan Ruffs of this world.
Yeah, I'm worried that you'll see more violence now.
Yeah.
There's going to be more because they feel cornered. Their back's against the wall. They're losing. And now I see when they say we need to take our country back, they literally feel like they've lost their country.
I would expect it.
Okay, so we're going to see a lot more domestic terrorism.
Or some. Yeah, and we're going to see more. It's kind of like that's the price we pay by allowing change to occur, is that you have to endure where the dead enders, the fear and the carnage that they may let loose.
And what happens with the Republicans as they try to determine who's going to be their stalwart in the next presidential election? Because they're going to have to go through, their base. They created this base. They got in bed with this base.
Yes. Well,
that drove them so far to the right.
This is true. My sense of it is that on the one hand, all of this last 10 days has been a help to some, in the sense of they don't have to deal with fixing Obamacare. They can just continue to thrash away at it all they want, and their base will be happy, and they won't have to come up with anything.
So it'll be like abortion in that respect, right?
No.
Because that never. Look at what happened with abortion.
Sure, but here's the thing: it's there's some key differences, both with Obamacare and the gay marriage. On Obamacare, it's like the more people take on getting into the system, the more vested they'll become.
That's true.
And there is, the kind of counter argument to it is so arcane and so ideologically
and doesn't
straitjacketed.
Doesn't affect people where their lives are.
It's like, and the more that goes on, the more those people are just going to seem odd. It's like, what is that all about? Now, on the gay marriage thing, I've heard a lot and read a lot of columns the last number of days about how it is. Oh, they're going to make. The court has preempted the American voter, and they weren't ready for this.
Well, that was true of the Voting Rights Act.
Sure,
it was true of.
But they want this to be like the next abortion thing, where they're gonna bring this forth for the next 30 years. Well, the problem with that is demography.
Okay.
Yes, it's basically the millennials, younger
it
people.
Just ain't gonna work, right?
They support gay marriage,
right?
And it's like so that the music that they're going to be playing around this issue, only a shrinking number of people are actually going to be hearing that music.
That's right.
And so it's like, they can have that.
It's amazing. They're constantly on the wrong side of history.
They're especially so.
Just constant.
The Confederate flag.
All of this. So the Confederate flag.
Yes.
Wow. God, there's so much to talk about. I want to. Okay, go ahead.
One of the things I think that we've talked about before was how it is that it seems like change is so hard. And you go decades and decades and decades where nothing happens.
Yeah.
And then there's like this tipping point where suddenly so much changes. And of course, like FDR with the New Deal back in 1933. It's like that was one of those moments. And I had been predicting, I'm not sure if I had predicted it on this show or not, that I had predicted that we're coming into that kind of time period.
Well, you know what? And I just want to say for people who constantly despair, like me.
Not me.
No, you have to remember that change occurs because people push for it. And all those activists who, starting from Evan Wolfson, who people thought he was out of his mind.
I know.
And then,
Gary Bauer just mocked him.
I know. You just, it is amazing. Those people, God bless them.
Yes.
They are the ones. It is individual people acting and refusing to care about what the odds are or what any of the realistic people like me say. You just keep moving.
Yes.
And change does happen.
Yes.
And anyone who thinks it happens like that isn't paying attention because...
once in a while it happens like that.
This happened very quickly.
This last week, both around the Confederate flag and gay marriage and Obamacare, it's just like... these are...
they're all huge.
They're huge. And
who would think you'd see the Confederate flag? Fine. I've been wishing for this forever.
Yes.
That the South would be called out. Called out, finally.
Yes.
And now it's happened.
Yeah.
I mean, God, thank you. Thank you.
And you know what's going to give it further fuel are the wingnuts who are going to turn out in places like Richmond and
in favor of it.
They're going to. You're going to look at these rallies where they're going to come out with all of their
guns
racist, their racist stuff, and their and in their Confederate regalia, speaking. God knows what any reporter covering that event, it would be a dream because all you have, it's an abundance of riches. The people that you can interview there and just get the most crazy stuff coming out of their mouths.
Good heavens! I mean, Strom Thurmond's son was on, calling for this has got to go. It's
Speaker of the House in Mississippi.
I mean, they're falling all over themselves. They saw the opening, maybe.
Well, I had a theory around that, in that I suspect that the Republicans, and especially at the state level, but also at the federal level, have been aching to ditch this issue.
Sure.
It's just like, put this away.
Yeah, this was an opportunity. They saw it.
Nikki Haley, she's smarter than I thought she was. I did not appreciate, because she clearly is like, she was done with this. It's just like...
there's been some stories that have popped out of a study using Google searches.
Yes.
To see where most of the racists in this country apparently are. And it's fascinating because... first of all, if you just look where people Google they want to buy something with a Confederate flag on it or a flag itself.
What is it, like Appalachia, isn't it?
It's not only Appalachia, but I got to tell you, Pennsylvania.
Oh,
folks, there's a whole bunch of southern states, and then guess who's right up there with them?
Yeah. Yeah.
Pennsylvania. And then somebody said if you really look at where it concentrates, you just go right up the... Appalachian Trail.
That's it.
Right up. That's where the most racism is.
Yes.
And I was thinking, so that doesn't confine it to the South. That takes it right straight up.
Yes.
Straight up. And I think it's an indication of how racism is very much part and parcel of... lack of education and poverty. No?
I agree.
More than geography.
I would I would disagree on that last piece. Just that I think one of the things you're looking at there also is an indication of urban, cosmopolitan kind. That is one of the least urban and cosmopolitan stretches of the country. It's also...
But even in the West, I mean, if you look in those big square states that you think of as very conservative, it's not... it's not racist there.
No, but even in places like Idaho, when you get to cities like Boise, that is a very progressive place. Right. Missoula, Montana, or Bozeman, Montana. These places are surprisingly. Whereas if you look at The other indicator that I would look to in that Appalachia is the lack of diversity.
It's all what?
It's mostly whites. There are the second group are African Americans, but you find very few other sort of ethnic or racial groups.
It's poor whites.
Yes. Isolated whites.
Uneducated whites.
Yeah. And that's. And I think we've talked before when looking at elections. You look at the trade-offs that the Democrats are making in terms of states that it looks like that they're through demography that they're going to be powerful in the future, and the ones that the Republicans are going to be sort of getting stronger in. It's like the Democrats are getting places like New Mexico and Arizona, whereas the Republicans are getting places like West Virginia. And it's like, I'll make that trade. You can have West Virginia.
Yeah, you can have it. Take it.
Yeah. And so it's,
Oh, God. So, what about that woman who scaled the flagpole?
all power. Well, I posted it.
Bless her.
I posted a very provocative piece on my blog about how it is that one person advocated. I forget. It was an editorial. It might have been in USA Today. I'm not even sure now. About advocating the burning of the Confederate flag.
Yes, I saw that. Yes.
And it's like.
And it's smart. We should all just start burning that flag everywhere.
And
burn it at every opportunity. Burn that flag.
Yes.
Stomp on it. Burn it. Absolutely.
Yep. I had a slight degree of hesitancy, but I liked the proactive nature of it. It's like, because it's like, that is a statement, and for those people, they've been getting.
We have a caller.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I guess not. Go
Okay.
ahead. Okay.
Yeah.
So you had some trepidation about it?
Well, it is. I'm not a flag burning kind of guy normally,
But the symbolism of it.
Yeah, I would definitely align with that, and it's the kind of thing that it communicates powerfully, it's something that 10 people can do.
Something that one person can do.
Absolutely. Now,
and with social media, they can do it. They can put it out there, and we could just be burning these things left and right.
Yes.
Make it pretty hard for somebody to show up wearing it.
Now,
okay, we got the caller back again. Let's hope. Hello.
Hello, Lynn Cullen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll make this quick because I know you have a guest. But I don't know, you probably didn't see Charlie Daniels. He's saying that the flag was never meant for slavery. He said it was the honor to dead soldiers, and he still thinks that's what it meant. And he said that the blacks and the Democrats will railroad the Confederate flag to make it a symbol of evil.
Oh, that is so wrong.
The soldiers that fought that died.
That is so historic. So he's an idiot.
Yeah, I don't agree with him, but that's his.
Okay, that's
right.
That's his little thing, and he's sticking to it, and he's absolutely wrong.
It's the exact opposite.
Seriously, he's historically incorrect.
Yeah,
I think it's racist.
Well, the Confederate flag, as it is now used symbolically in our culture, it started to become that symbol not back in the Civil War times or even in the 19th century. It started to become that in the 1950s. With the rise of the civil rights movement, it was embraced across the South as not a symbol to honor their dead. It was a symbol
of white power.
Of white power and opposition to African American civil rights.
That is, it didn't used to fly over all these state houses in the South.
That's all
new. It wasn't until the 50s and the 60s that they started putting it up, and it was a way of saying no to African Americans.
Most Southerners, they don't think of it like that.
Well, they're wrong.
They use it for the honor.
That's what they say, but it's just historically inaccurate. It's just not true.
They're full of shit.
Thank you.
Okay,
sure.
goodbye.
Thanks.
point.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I mean, it's just not true.
That's right.
And you know what? If you're going to, if you want to honor something about your region, the South, that ain't the way to do it.
No.
A flag that was a treasonous banner.
Yep.
I mean, sorry. No, not.
And the other piece to it is, this whole argument about the other piece to it is in regards to states' rights, about how it symbolizes small government or states' rights. That even if you go back to Civil War times, and when the Confederacy was taking shape, and you read the quotes of Jefferson Davis and the other leaders of the Confederacy, they were absolutely clear that what this was about was slavery.
It's
And it's
absolutely clear. And I mean, you can't. This is what happens when you let Texas have so much control over what ends up in our history books.
Well, I would actually say that it's what happens when people who care passionately about a certain kind of issue or check out for generations at a time. And this is what happened after the Civil War generation passed away in the 1890s. That what you had is, it's no accident that Plessy versus Ferguson comes along in 1899. That it's like it didn't happen in 1875 or 1885. It happened.
For those who don't know, Plessy versus Ferguson
established, it made it legal for Jim Crow and segregation to exist. That it was like it comes right as that Civil War generation is passing away, and it's like that the memory of the Civil War for those people who fought it becomes more and more remote. It suddenly becomes, this was about states' rights,
and there's no one to tell them. Otherwise.
Exactly.
And
we see it. We're seeing it now in our own time. When you look at that, with the World War II generation is passing away. That what you see going on in Europe right now is you see a resurgence of fascism.
That's right.
It's like no accident.
Those who don't know their history,
yes,
are condemned. I mean, we're gonna, and it does seem like no one ever does know their history. You just keep repeating.
Well, fortunately, I do think both the cultures and the United States
eventually
that we do take in the proper, the appropriate lessons. And especially when you think in the face of, when you look at the opposition to immigration that was in the early 20th century, around the volume of different ethnic groups coming into the United States, they did put in some barriers to immigration, but they didn't give up on the principle of it. And so, like 1924, they put in a major barrier that lasted through the 30s, made it very hard for Jews to come into the United States. But then that basic principle was never lost, that we allow in people that are different from us, and we integrate them.
Which brings us to Donald Trump.
Oh, boy.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Number two in the polls.
Polling number. Now that's, I'm sorry, but that just shows how fucked the Republican Party is.
I have actually a view on that as well. I have a view on lots of things. But that I actually view him as the Patrick Buchanan of this cycle in certain respects. That it is a pox on all of your house. From Republican voters, they look at this field, and despite the variety, it's a variety of clowns.
Yeah.
Sure, why not Donald Trump? Let's vote.
Yeah, why not?
I can remember
I can't think of a thing.
I can remember I lived in Connecticut back in '92 when Buchanan was running against George H.W. Bush. I was at that time. I wanted to be. I thought I was registered in the Democratic Party, but I wasn't. That I thought, well, I want to send a message, so I voted for Patrick Buchanan. Not because I I was just upset with George H.W. Bush at that time. And I think that's...
A lot of people might have done the same.
Especially in New Hampshire. Yeah, it's like the New Hampshire voters are not your standard issue Republicans.
No, well, none of those New England voters are.
No. I mean, the evangelical vote, it's like 4%.
No, right.
Up in New England.
So, okay, so, all right. So if millennials will look back at us, as I look back, frankly, at the greatest generation.
Yes.
Yeah. And thought, didn't you see what was going on with black people in this country? You great generation, you were comfortable with having. I really rankle. I mean, it rankles me.
Yes.
This bullshit.
Yes. Thank you, Tom Brokaw.
Yeah, I mean, really.
Thank you very much.
They were human, okay?
Yes.
They were presented with challenges, and they rose to those challenges.
And then there were other challenges that they did not rise to.
Were absolutely blind to, and it took their children, the much vilified baby boomers, to take on that.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, as my son would say now, why are you so angry? Why are you so angry? I said, well, there's plenty of reason to be angry.
Your son sounds like a classic millennial.
Yeah, so here's the thing. Millennials will look back, and their children will look back, and they'll say, were these people out of their minds with this gay stuff? And with, what was going on in their pinheads? What I'm wondering is what are the millennials' children or grandchildren going to say about their blindness?
Yeah.
So what's next? I mean, really, what?
There's so many things out there, and some of them are so provocative when one sort of gets into the weeds of them. Now, I actually think that this marriage decision is really the beginning of a conversation rather than the end.
Yeah, I got a feeling.
And
that's
especially,
true.
I mean, all you need to do is look over, we talk about LGBT. Well, where's the T?
The trans.
Yeah, it's like, I actually think that, that transgender folks, it's almost like that they still have most of the mountain to take.
Probably, yes.
Yeah, because
But does it make a difference that we're talking about smaller and smaller populations? In other words, women's liberation, that's 50% of actually more than 50% of the population. African Americans, sizable percentage.
Sure.
Gay Americans, but these percentages are going down.
Right.
And
but there's
trans, we're talking about.
Sure, but there's other groups. I actually view that there's still a huge barriers that need to be overcome for women.
Oh.
Yeah, that's just like that's almost like half. They've only taken about half the mountain there,
absolutely.
And there's still so much more mountain to take.
Well, the pushback is incredible.
That's
the pushback
absolutely
is incredible.
And in addition to that, to kind of get further more these are low-hanging fruit we've talked about so far.
Yes.
That the more provocative I would see are immigrants, which is to say, like illegal immigrants.
We've got a call.
Okay.
They'll pull us off subject. Hello.
Hello.
Oh, Clarence. Hi.
How you doing?
Fine.
I have an answer, I think.
To what?
To what the millennials kids will say about the millennials.
Oh, okay.
Oh, great.
Oh, good.
Religion.
Yeah.
All right.
Because that's right now, here, of course, is with the, gays and the lesbians and the trans. And a lot of the damage, with ISIS and all that kind of stuff is going on. They're going to be a little bit more global too with their stuff, because of the internet and all this nonsense. So I think religion is going to be the millennials going to say, why were people killing each other for this?
Absolutely.
Won't that be wonderful?
Yeah. And anything else you wanted to say about that, Clarence?
No. I'll just hang up now.
Thank you.
Yeah, the sort of thing that gives, I think, a fair amount of accelerant to that is the fact that, in my own view, since the 70s, you've seen the rise of this evangelical Republican religious community. Mm-hmm. And my father was a Protestant minister up in Connecticut, and it's like, it's almost, I remember Andrew Sullivan calls these people Christianists.
Christianists.
That there is basically a synthesis of this sort of hyper patriotism and
what and
religious beliefs in the Christian realm.
Caller.
Hi, Lynn. This is Beth. I wanted to call and weigh in on the flag, the symbols, the this and that.
Okay.
And I guess the thing is, it's just kind of driving me nuts a bit about the whole, now this huge debate about should we have the flag up, flag down, is the fact that now you're creating a new group of a new division, let's say. You may have people who are not racist in any state and form, but now they're starting to side with that. And I guess the thing is,
side with what?
Symbol.
With the
powerful symbol.
Wait, you're saying that there are people who genuinely think that flag symbolizes a pride in their region or whatever, and that now they're being lumped with racist.
Let's even take the flag away from it, and let's say, like a statue of Robert E. Lee.
Right.
Been there for 100 years. Let's just take it from an architect, an art standpoint, and then take the flag away. And you're now having people that you could tell they don't defend the action, but they're defending, let's say, that relic or that statue, whatever it is. And I guess the thing is, we're talking too much about that and not what this issue really is, which is we're still an incredibly racist country. And I
know.
I wish all of this energy was used towards that debate rather than debating the stars and bars and statues.
Yeah, but did you hear that thing I read that, I just wait, I think I have it here and I want to read it again because that symbol is important. David Brooks, culture is transmitted through the generations by the things we honor or don't honor, by the symbols and names we celebrate and don't celebrate. If we want to reduce racism, we have to devalue the symbols that signify its acceptance.
Okay, I'll give you that. But I really wish we would be taking this energy and really engaging about, just the whole. This country is incredibly racist.
I understand, and it's always easier to deal with the symbolism. Okay, you can't say the N-word, and now we can't do.
It goes along to this thing. I feel like we've become a country of reactionaries. I agree with you totally that we've become a bunch of, we're afraid, we're very afraid, and that sort of thing. But we've also become this reactionary population where we get angry about a subject, but instead of actually solving that problem or having some resolve, we move on to our new reaction. I'm kind of afraid this is kind of falling into that same pattern.
Well, but that's the way the media, the media have our attention, and they don't stay on one subject. They go from one to the next. We keep moving on.
Yeah, but again, we as a population could be taking that anger too and keeping it and saying, no, if you want to move on to, whatever topic's happening, whether it be Rick Perry made a faux pas, Donald Trump, whatever it is. But you know what? No, we're staying on this one as a society. And for some reason, we just don't have that pull anymore.
Well, that's what activists have to do.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
I have a somewhat different view on this, and that is that with the symbols such as the Confederate flag and the statues and all that this is one of the hills that needs to be taken. And fortunately, it looks like we're gonna take this one. But it's almost like for the sake of African Americans and a kind of an honest look at history, for the sake of honesty and the kind of history that we tell, it's a hill that has to be taken. And hopefully we don't waste much time on it.
Right.
And it just seems like we are. And I guess that's, like I said,
I understand.
That's my concern.
No, I understand.
I get it.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah. So
others, immigration, that right now, we and it's not just the United States, but you see this in Europe.
Well, no, this is a global problem.
Immigrants and refugees. And it's like they are a different category of human being.
They're not quite human, are they?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you kind of look at the knots that Europeans are twisting themselves into these days over how to deal with what is the largest...
Well, you don't think that that's mostly racism? Because the needy and the desperate are overwhelmingly African.
I actually think it is that, but it's more than that. In that these people are posing extraordinary burdens on the countries that they are landing in.
True.
And so there's kind of a hard. How do you deal with them? Do you integrate them into your society?
Well, that's the American way.
Not with illegal immigrants, we don't.
No.
We're
heading in that direction.
Are we?
I think so.
I think so. I'd like to see them, but we're talking about sort of what's the net. What are the people in the future?
Call.
Oh, okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Hey, I think my wife had a feeling similar to the last caller, which was she kind of feels that the whole flag debate distracts from what the real issue is, which is the gun issue. And she thinks that the NRA is very, and I kind of have a little bit of agreement with her that the NRA is probably thrilled that everybody's talking about the flag.
Right.
Yes.
Right, I think that's true. I saw I think a cartoon the other day with, so now we're talking about, we got all these dead people, we got another massacre, and we're talking about the flag and not guns.
Yeah, I agree with what, I forget the guest's name, but he just said,
Jared.
It's a little hill, we should take it and then move on to the bigger issue, that's probably the bigger issue.
Exactly right.
Yep.
Exactly right. Thank you.
Yes.
Boy.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, there's
Bye-bye.
an issue. I wonder if the millennials will solve that one.
We'll have to see, because, it's like another, well, God forbid, but another event like this one or the Sandy Hook or something like that.
Well, there'll be.
Sure.
I mean,
but it's the kind of thing that, who would have predicted that out of this, this thing in Charleston, that suddenly the flags would come down?
Well,
I wouldn't have predicted it.
Do you agree that a lot of this the power of this particular, more so than all those children being mowed down, it was a higher body count and it was little kids and nothing happened. Do you think it had to do with what the president said, the grace shown by the survivors?
Yeah. It could be that generosity is what's going to change people's minds more than vituperation and outrage.
Yeah, it seemed to have it really touched, shamed, whatever it led those people.
Yeah. So, along with the refugees and the immigrants, all that whole world of rights, that I think that there's people that aren't even really looking at that hill. The other one that I threw out, and I think it's one of the most provocative ones on the landscape. It is the idea of non-human persons.
Animal rights, right?
Non-human. Have you heard this?
Yeah.
Non-human persons.
Yeah. I mean, there's been, they've been trying to help, monkeys and chimpanzees. You start with the ones that are closest to us.
But a court actually ruled in favor of the orangutan recently.
Yeah. Yes. Right. I saw that.
And it seemed to accept the argument that there was this thing called the rights of non-human persons, and it's like I think most people nowadays around the world would think, what? You mean my cow has some kind of a right that I need to acknowledge? Well, I could easily see 100 years from now that people looking back, it's like, Well, of course.
How did you not? Yeah. No, I agree. But boy, are we we're a fur piece from that.
Man, a fur piece.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so, geez. We only got 3 minutes left.
Yeah. Other groups? I would say children and young people.
Here you go, yeah.
That it's one of these things where right now 18-year-olds can vote, and the question may come up is, well, why not younger people? Why not younger people?
How young do you go?
Don't know. I actually think that it's one of the things that has skewed our politics since Reagan's time is the fact that senior citizens have had such a disproportionate influence on
policies that will impact young people.
Exactly. Right. So it's like, so what you end up with is a condition where, despite all the rhetoric that you hear about, oh, we don't want to saddle our young people with all of this and that and the other damn thing.
Oh, but
it's
we
do.
Like,
sure you do.
Yeah, sure you do.
Yes, you do. And all I have to do is look at what you've done.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you did. And so, it's like, who knows? But there are so many areas of civil rights and human rights that are yet to be taken.
Well, I would say, here's one.
Yes?
Workers'
Oh, yeah.
rights.
Well, to me, I view that as sort of a cyclical thing. That there are times when workers...
It's bad now.
Now it's bad. It is very bad. And there again, I hold out the possibility that can change in a dime. Because that's exactly what to think about it. One of the greatest eras of workers' rights in our country was during the depths of the Great Depression. And what happened? The Wagner Act. That's all that it took to open up a whole new world for workers, even at a time where there was just the worst time.
And the Wagner Act, again, for people who don't know their history.
It establishes the National Labor Relations Board and it asserted the federal government as an arbitrator between capital and labor as a way of facilitating workers having a voice. It's one of the areas where Obama, people don't realize the extent to which what he's done at the National Labor Relations Board.
Yes. That was a totally dysfunctional, totally
corporate, totally
corporatized, and he did, thank God, turn it around to what it's supposed to be.
That's
actually. Which brings me to, I mentioned yesterday about Richard Nixon's domestic policies and how he signed into law OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health
Administration. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you see a Republican doing that today?
No. Well, Nixon
or the EPA.
He was so ambivalent about domestic policy. He cared about foreign policy, and
but
it's like whatever.
Positively liberal.
Yes, indeed. He would be considered very liberal now.
Yeah, very, very liberal. Here's somebody else saying, I think the real winner, if you can call him that, in this furor over the flag is the NRA. After all, guns don't kill people. The Confederate flag kills people. Okay, I hear you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're out of time.
Yes.
Woo!
Yes. Historic moment.
And
yes.
you got that from the historian. So there you have it. Jared, as usual, thank you so much. And have a beautiful day.
Yes.
Like it is.
Bye-bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.